Could it be that it's never been said? If not, let us every one, each and all, at last put it to bed. If there is a mind that is thinking but is yet to know it, Dr. Seuss is one of last century's greatest of poets. Indeed, Dr. Seuss's The Grinch Who Stole Christmas from 1966, the first short film to be reviewed here on The Cutting Room, is unquestionably one of the foremost works of Christmas cinema. It's hands down my favorite Christmas movie of all time. Now everyone knows the story. A weird green curmudgeon with an evil grin and a heart 2 sizes too small attempts to stop Christmas from coming to Whoville. Dressed in a ratty Santa suit and aided by his reindeer dressed dog, he steals all the Who's presents, feasts, and holiday trimmings. First released as a TV special, the film pairs the lyrical brilliance of Dr. Seuss's world of poetry with the visual hijinks of Chuck Jones's Saturday morning cartoon shenanigans. Though Jones's styling sometimes threatened to become impositions on the film, it's Seuss's prose that emerges triumphant. Narrated gleefully by horror icon Boris Karloff, the film, in its brief 26-minute running time, expertly shows us the heart of Christmas, reminding us that it comes despite the materialism and consumerism that swirls around America like vultures. What's more, it shows us that in our darkest winter moments, the Grinchiest of us can awaken our potential to love, and that we are capable of feeling the joy of brotherhood. Theodore Seuss Geisel's poetry and drawings, as found in his myriad books and exemplified here in Grinch, defined and expanded the imaginations of millions of children, me included. It also reminded millions of adults how wonderful and precious childhood is, me included. And quite simply, Dr. Seuss is one of the greatest artists of the 20th century. So leave it to me for hyperbole.
I think you understated yourself a bit.
But yeah, man. I mean, I kept that one short, and that may be the short. As long as well as that's the first short film that we're bringing out here on the show. That might be my shortest intro and review that I've ever done here. So
it's kind of appropriate because the Grinch is just the shortest, punchiest little cartoon, man. It's a review that suits the film.
Yeah, but and for how short it is, it just feels so powerful to me, man. I'm not quite sure why, or I guess I wasn't quite sure why until God bless this cutting room thing, man, for all of the hard work and pain in the ass that it is sometimes. It really gets me to stop and consider why I feel the way I do about certain films, So instead of just having an emotional response to these films that I love, I actually am forced to kind of sit down and try to sort my feelings out and try to figure out on an intellectual level what's going on, and it's fruitful and rewarding at a lot of times.
Yeah. So what is it about this one? What did you what did you find?
Yeah, I mean, I think personally, and I think that this might be the reason why it's become a timeless classic, in spite of its humble TV beginnings, is because I think maybe I feel like I'm the Grinch, and I never thought of it like that before, I mean, listen, when Christmas starts coming, I shudder in a lot of ways because of how obscene the malls are and how foolish everybody looks when they're putting themselves through these insane rituals and anxiety and stress, for getting things ready, making cookies, Christmas cards, this and that and the other thing. I mean, we make ourselves crazy, and and how much money people are spending, going into debt over Christmas, and it just is loathsome to me, and I just absolutely abhor it until the moment of Christmas morning, when everything's quiet and I wake up and I have loved ones around, as everybody does, and you realize that you go through that ritual because I guess sort of one of sort of the practices of ritual is to put yourself into an extreme, throw yourself
Right.
to your most extreme to
Lash yourself repeatedly, before
Right.
you get to the banquet.
Right, and then so you punish yourself so you can have a moment of understanding or truth or at the end of it. And I think that I realized just finally, after maybe 15 years, 20 more than that, 25 years of watching this film, or even more than that, I just realized that I think that why I love it so much is that I hate Christmas just the way the Grinch does, and then I love it. You know what I mean? And I think that there's something very beautiful about that. I was very glad to and it totally surprised me because when I brought this up, I knew it was my favorite film to watch during the Christmas season, but I had no idea
But you
why.
couldn't have
You
ever
know,
told anyone why that was.
right until this morning. So how do you feel about the film? Do you dig it?
Oh yeah, I kind of had the "It's a Wonderful Life" experience. I didn't see this until I was an adult, and and I loved it. I didn't know anything about it. I didn't have any attachments to it whatsoever. And the first thing that I thought of was just Chuck Jones' animation is brilliant. Like,
Right.
I mean, I love Dr. Seuss books. I would say as a kid, but I don't think you ever stop loving Dr. Seuss books. Like you can still pick up like Hop on Pop now or something, or Green Eggs and Ham, and you're just like, this is freaking brilliant.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, the places you'll
Y-
go is just one of my favorites.
That's great. Yeah, I mean he's brilliant. But yeah, when I first saw it, I was just I mean I just thought I was really looking at a great film.
Mm.
It's I love the story of the Grinch because that is the sort of maudlin thing you're talking about is uh, hard to talk about these days. Is that and it's something that I've had to learn. Same as you is like you have to grow your heart three sizes. Like and
Right.
it's tough sometimes, but. Yeah, what is what is your family experience with that? Have the kids gotten tuned into the cartoon?
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah, they watch it. We've watched it. I watch it every year. It's one of the few. It was maybe the only Christmas movie that I watch every year. I've seen I'll see bits and parts of this and that and the other thing. But yeah, they love it. And it strikes them. It's just so much fun. I don't know how much it's really affecting them. I haven't really discussed it with them, but I know that they enjoy it every time, and it's so nice that it's so short. And just as just speaking to that cynical thing and being able to watch a Christmas, I mean, It's a Wonderful Life. This film, the way that he presents it without, to me, like the way that it's presented and the imagination that Seuss has in creating his worlds makes those model and sentiments so easy to digest. I mean, he pretty much comes out and says it, with hands to, what is it? We'll stand hand to hand. Christmas will come as long as as long as we stand it, whatever, heart to heart, and we
Yeah,
have hands to clasp, or whatever the quote is. I mean, he just comes out and says things that in other contexts just, are like eye rolling or, almost embarrassing. But because he mixes it in with, like, he's just a master of language in a lot of ways, and I at least I feel that way. So those sentiments can be presented very quickly and very directly. You know what I
well,
mean? Without.
he's using irony, but in an earnest and heartfelt way, and it's very like the best kids movies are the ones that show how kids really do have a fully formed sense of theatricality and
Mhm.
dignity and pomp and circumstance and everything. And the Dr. Seuss, like the characters, never. They take their theatricality very seriously. Like it's a
Mhm.
joke, they're winking at you a little bit, but it's very serious. Like, he doesn't condescend to his characters just because they're kids characters. Do you know what I'm
Right,
saying?
like yeah, like I mean, by mixing, you know, like I don't know if this is too academic, but if you start analyzing the language that he uses when he's mixing actual words with nonsense
Hmm.
words, and like the actual words he's using are like, oh, I just thought of one, lacrosse and oh, I forget what the other one was, but like just that word right there, lacrosse, right? It sounds ridiculous. It sounds like nonsense.
Right,
So he's showing you how ridiculous and how nonsensical human language is, and
right.
how ridiculous our
The
languages. But
jumble
he's
of vowels and consonants all
right.
tumbling
You
together.
know, yeah, he'll put lacrosse up against pantuka or something
Yeah.
like that, you know, and it's just it's just showing you that, you know, it shouldn't be taken that seriously and how beautiful it is at the same time. So so there is like this sense of irony, like, yeah, look how silly we are, all of us, and how ridiculous our language is in a lot of ways, and how beautiful it is and how lovable it is, you know, and and that's like the mark of a great poet to me, you
So
know.
how much would you there's two things I'm wondering how much you were conscious of younger and how much they may have influenced you, but that is one, the absurdity, which I think is pretty deeply embedded in your character, is
Yeah.
a love for just nonsense and like taking, you know, taking all the everything on a table and turning it upside down and inside out just to see how people respond to it, you know?
Right. I mean, I love absurdity. I don't know how, and this, I loved reading these books to my kids. You know, I just loved it. I loved it. I couldn't read them enough to them. You know, because of that absurdity, and you know, and that comes from exactly what Seuss is doing. I mean, if you say a word, like if you take almost any word and then you just start saying it and you say it over and over again, it begins to lose its
Right.
meaning, and then it just
It
becomes
melts
it.
like you put it in a heater or a blender or something and it starts to fall apart.
Right, and it just becomes the word itself, and you realize how empty words are, and like by implication, you know, the absurd, basically what the absurdists do is they look at, you know, human circumstances and social circumstances or political circumstances, and you just look at it and you turn it over and over and over enough, and you just realize how silly we are,
Dali
you know.
says, "Hey, that you know, a lobster and a telephone look an awful lot like each other."
Right, that's all, you know, or oh shit, who wrote Waiting for Godot?
Samuel Beckett?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Beckett. Yeah, Beckett. So I mean, you know, you take this situation of waiting, you know,
Right.
or just living, and then it's just like, well, why are we living? What are we waiting for? We're just waiting. We're waiting and waiting and waiting, and it becomes absurd. It
Right.
becomes ridiculous, and it becomes a celebration of the absurdity and the ridiculousness of life, you know, and that's what I love about Seuss. How do you feel about his use of language? I
Oh,
mean,
yeah, it's insanely
okay.
brilliant. Like,
I mean, am I over? Am I sound? Do I sound silly if I call him a great poet? You know, of the 20th
no,
century.
no, I don't. I mean, I think yeah, I think he's great, man. And I think, you know, it's something like a creed that I've kind of laid down for myself to just, you know, rattle everything, like absorb as much information as I know, but also then rattle it all around, see how it bounces off of itself. And, you know, you can kind of shake meaning out of its trappings, you know,
Hmm.
and that's what he's like, he's encouraging kids to do from the get-go. His very subversive stuff, you know, like Shel Silverstein a little bit also, you know, it's challenging the natural order of or not the
Right.
natural order, but the civilized order of things without being too, you know, too, not, it's not like a, you know, it's not a cynical way of doing it. It's a very fun and creative, and he's winking at the kids saying, "Hey, you know, you can mess around with everything around you,
Right.
right?"
Right. And
Green
it
eggs and
expands
ham. I
your.
do not like green eggs and ham. He spends the whole book saying I don't like it, and he's never even tried it before. And then he tries it. He goes, "Hey, I like green eggs and ham."
Yeah, and you know what? The funny thing about that is that it could be anything, but just by the mere fact
Exactly.
of picking green eggs and ham,
Right.
you know, it just by just emphasizing how, and this is like at the root
It
of
could be purple
my.
toosters or
Right.
polka dot ponies, you know, like it doesn't really
Right.
matter.
Right, and that's what I pick up about absurdity is how obsessed we get with certain things or how
Well,
fixated
it's
we
like
become on
it's
certain
habit
things, you know.
without substance, right?
Right,
Where like
right.
the Godot thing, you have two guys waiting for an object, a thing, a horse, a person, a tidal wave, something named Godot. You know, you never really know what Godot is, right?
Or
Or
why,
why
you
or
know.
anything. All you have is the clockwork repetition of a ritual, and you could insert anything into that, you know?
Right, and just you know, and the greatest works of literature are that too. I mean, you know, again, Kafka. It's just funny we mentioned Kafka twice on a Christmas special, but but you know, his trial is the same thing, except it's just done with a completely different tone. You know, guys waiting for to you know, he's going to a trial that never
He's
happens.
never
You
even
know,
told what he's accused of.
which is accused of, you know, and that's the absurdity. You know, people get fixated on things like the bureaucratic fixation
Right.
bureaucracy, or our and what just to bring it back to Seuss, is what Seuss is showing you is that you can look at things, take a step back, and this is something that's so important for an artist or any artist, is just to take a step back and try to look at things objectively. And if you do that, you'll see how silly things are, and all of a sudden you can think critically about something, and you can imagine because you can imagine the situation that you're fixated in on, or someone else is
Right.
obsessively fixated on, and you could see it for what it is, which is something that is essentially nonsense, but beautiful nonsense, and that's the key. and,
Well,
and
and
I
you
think
can
that's
play
the
with it.
key.
If you can learn that you're not like stuck inside of it, you can learn to play with it, like it becomes it gives you the opportunity to have fun with life instead of just feel like you're stuck inside of it.
Right, and going back to that cynicism thing, I think I'm just starting to form sort of a coherent thought. Is that if you're looking at the world as nonsense, you could either become very cynical about it and angry about the world being
Mm,
nonsense and meaningless, or you can look at it and celebrate it and say, you know what, the world is nonsense, but it's beautiful nonsense. And if I consider it as such, then I will find true meaning, like the Grinch does in this film here. At the end, he shuffles away all the nonsense of the trimmings and the materialism and all that stuff of the Whoville, and at the end, he realizes that there is something quite beautiful about it, and he derives meaning from it.
yeah. I want to ask you one more thing about the film, like the movie's influence on you when you were a kid, but just to that end, I think what you were just talking about, I think the one of the best things that you can cue kids in on early is that you don't have to live as a passive observer of life. Like you should not feel that life is there just to entertain you, but that you can participate in it, and you're the one who can get out there and move things around and
Mm-hmm.
be, I think that one of the problems is uh with video games and all that stuff is it creates passive human beings, right? Where
Mm-hmm.
you're there sitting and everything around you is there to entertain you.
Right.
And something like the some of the nuggets of wisdom buried in something like Seuss is that you are the one who can go out there and you can be the entertainment. You can be, it's the act of creativity, not in any like, screenwriting or film directing or anything, any sense where you have to be an artist or anything, but that life itself is a form of theater and art, and it's a creative
Mm-hmm.
act. And you like depression and all that stuff, I think a lot of times comes from expecting to be entertained passively.
Mm.
And I think that's where you can look at absurdity and become cynical about it, because then you're just watching a cascade of nonsense flow by, and it just makes you sad and detached from all of
Mm.
life. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, we're absolutely, man. And I'm gonna recommend this to you one more time. And I know it's a bit of a tangent, but Infinite Jest by David Foster Wallace. I
Okay.
know it's sort of a there's some weird hipster thing going on around the Foster Wallace and everything, but his book Infinite Jest has a lot to do with entertainment. But anyway, yeah, bringing it back to Seuss, by presenting language in these situations to the kids in this way, he's engaging them to participate
Right.
in this nonsense,
Right.
and that's something that's important. Again, it carries over to the works of cinema that we love. Is that we love, or at least I love, and I know that you do too. The works that challenge you to participate in them, and they don't spoon feed you.
I
And
know Dr. Seuss loved movies like the Buñuel Dali movies where, some
sure,
guy with a pencil thin mustache is throwing a stuffed giraffe out his window, like
right,
that's imagery
right.
that you can just see in the lines of Dr. Seuss.
Right, or maybe one of my favorite films of all time, which I may torture Tom with this at one point down the road here, is Exterminating Angel, where
Right.
this class of affluent or bourgeois society people get trapped in a room that they can't bring themselves to leave, and it's just absurd. And again, it's the same. That's the same thing here. Through that notion of nonsense and absurdity, and you end up finding a meaning, which Bunel does at that film. But I suppose that's a conversation for another time. Um, so you're digging the Chuck Jones the cartoon artwork in this. You didn't find it like I never thought about it before, but I know that they worked very closely on this. Um, I felt like there was a little bit of a tension between Seuss's visual aesthetic and Chuck Jones's. I mean, I know that you're a comic book artist and you draw and everything. How you feel? How are you feeling about what's going on with these two guys and two different styles coming together here?
Yeah, I don't feel like it's a totally perfect marriage. Uh,
Mm.
but it's pretty darn good, like
Yeah,
uh, at the time I couldn't imagine anyone else able to do a better job than Chuck Jones.
right,
So I
right.
mean, it doesn't bug me. It doesn't throw me out of it. I did notice it more the first time I saw it a couple of years ago. But yeah, it doesn't bug me too much. Is it get on your nerves?
It didn't. It never did until this time when I start analyzing it, and I see like sort of the Roadrunner stuff
Right.
going on. You know what I mean?
Right.
And then just thinking about the original drawings and of Seuss's, and just made me think about it. It made me consider it a little bit. I mean, I love it. I think that
I do think there
there's a
could be a different set of the laws of physics. Like if you the laws of physics in a Chuck Jones cartoon are different than the laws of physics in a Dr. Seuss drawing,
mm,
Like there are
mm,
things about you know points of tension and stretching and gravity and all of this
right.
stuff that are very sort of elongated and quirky in the Dr. Seuss universe, and Chuck Jones is definitely more of a solid
Defying,
masses,
but yeah, but solid mass is defying gravity kind of
Right,
thing going on.
right.
Yeah, and like sort of visual pranks, I guess, or just jokes, visual puns, I guess. He does a lot of, and the coloring as well. I mean, obviously this coloring is all Jones,
Hmm.
where I mean, Seuss seems to be monochromatic, but I mean, all in all, I mean, I'm not bothered by it, and it's obviously a beautiful film. So,
Yeah,
um,
yeah. Did you have something else? Because the one question I keep wanting to ask you is like, as a kid when you saw this, did it lodge in your head at all about the thing that I kind of love about this the climax of this one is that the whole story is that he actually misunderstands why people like Christmas, like and the end is
hmm
uh that it's a very very political statement that
hmm
it's not about all the stuff, and everyone is perfectly happy without all the presents and everything, and
hmm
it's very feel good fable and everything. But did that set off any light bulbs in your head when you were a kid?
Oh, probably. I mean, when I was a kid, I'm not obviously analyzing all this stuff, but it's settled in really well, and I think it just had my, it, it just, it just was sort of added to the collection of the Seuss stuff that I really loved, and the Chuck Jones stuff that I really loved. You know what
Right.
I mean? So it kind of just fit right in there. I don't remember being particularly struck by sort of the deeper meaning of this, probably just because, when you're a kid and Christmas is coming around, you're inundated with all this Christmas cheer and Christmas miracle stuff. You know what I
Right.
mean? And it just sort of fell into the kind of the landscape of it. So I don't remember being particularly struck by it. I mean, you only saw this when you as an adult though, huh? You
Yeah,
didn't see this.
I think I was
Okay.
20, 21, 22 somewhere before I
That's
finally
cool.
saw it. So
That's cool. I mean, you kind of mentioned how you were reacting to it. I mean, do you want to say a few more words about your first experience with this film, or?
boy, I don't even remember. Yeah, it's funny the things. There's like sort of the new tribalism is your pop culture references that are familiar to you and your family, when you're young, and then later, I think especially our generation and the our successive generations, we identify with pop culture things. So there's like, oh, this and this was a part of my childhood, and then this, a friend of yours is like, oh, but this and this was, and your
Mm-hmm.
references are not my references,
All
and
right.
all that
Right.
stuff,
Right.
So there's a bunch of stuff like the Charlie Brown Christmas stuff,
Yeah.
Grinch, and a handful of things that just never really latched on. So when I saw it, I
Oh,
was just looking at it purely as film, and I I thought this is great, like it's just funny. I love the Grinch. I mean, it clearly tapped something that, like you were saying, you felt like you are the Grinch. It clearly tapped something in the collective experience, because it's the word has passed into common usage. Oh, you're such a Grinch,
right.
right?
Right.
Like it's I guarantee you it's got to be in a dictionary by now. It's got to be in Webster's, because it's just such a it's noun, adjective. It has a meaning, and it's a nonsense word, like you were saying. It's one of Dr. Seuss's made up words, right?
Which is where language should come from,
Right, exactly.
which is
So,
great.
if for nothing else, he's the 20th century's greatest poet for that, for contributing a new word to the language.
There you go. Right on, man. You want to throw a rating of sorts onto this?
Nah, I would
Okay.
just say recommended for everything that we just discussed.
And I'm gonna highly recommend it for everything that we just discussed as well, and everyone should go and check this out. And also, I'd like to recommend, Billy, that you bring this over to Bill Shetty in the Grizzly Zone, because you do have Boris Karloff narrating this film. So I think you could make a case for it as a horror film. What do you think?
You know what? I'm making a case for movies that I'm not sure anyone is enjoying as it is. So I don't want to push my luck.
Well, man, thanks for coming on here, man. I know it's we're in the middle of the season here, and it's really great to have you back, and it's good to talk to you on air here live. Do you have anything to say to Tom and Max? You want to fuel any sort of past grievances, fuel any fires for Max? Have any messages you want to tell him? I mean, you have an open mic here, so.
That would be the last priority on my list.
Right on, man. So you want to throw anything out there by way of plugs? I mean, you plug Grizzly Zone, man. Get people over there, and vice versa. Get people over from Grizzly Zone over
Right,
to
I
us.
was gonna say, yeah, we should have another 60,000 listeners on that podcast.
Jesus Christ, man.
No plugs, man. Just everyone knows me already. Billy Grimm. I don't remember. I think my Twitter handle is Billy Grimm 666, and obviously horrorpalace.com. Audio and video podcasts are up there right on the main page, and yeah, it's good. It's good coming back on and rambling about some filmmaking, man. It's fun stuff, huh?
Yeah, it's fun, and I'm looking forward to getting on with you again, regularly, and chit-chatting about this and that, and all sorts of films, man. And Merry Christmas, Billy, to you and yours, and tell everybody that from the Christianas to the Barasas, and the Sandra, what's her last Sudan?
She's Spanish.
What?
She has 32 surnames.
Well, Merry Christmas to her as well.
And to you and yours, man. We'll get together when the holiday insanity dies down and everyone's had a breather. We'll do something, man.
Absolutely. And I'm going to throw out a couple of plugs here. One for myself, if anybody's new to the Cutting Room, you can check out my film work and some other stuff that I'm working at ChristianaProductions.com. Actually, a lot of stuff that Billy and I work on together. If you're new to the show, we have a long history of making films together, among other things. You can also check out the Cutting Room at www.thecuttingroompodcast.com. You could get us on Facebook at the Cutting Room fan page, and we just put up a YouTube channel where we'll be putting up excerpts and interviews and all sorts of other goodies. So that is also the Cutting Room Podcast over on YouTube. And I just want to remind everyone that we will be back on January 3rd with our regularly scheduled feature episode number 26. And we will give you Film Noir and also the DVD new release 21 Jump Street. So part of my Grinchhood is having a dislike for most Christmas songs, and I'm sure everybody out there has heard them millions and millions of times. So instead of your standard Christmas carol to lead us out here, I'm gonna leave you guys with a song that I think is really beautiful. It's from the Felice Brothers, and it's called "Wonderful Life." Everybody out there in Cutting Room Land, have a Merry Christmas and have a great Happy New Year as well. Ciao.